Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing okay. Today I'm bringing you my reading journal update for March and April. And I know this video has been a long time coming, but since my last video I have moved from France to Canada, and all the preparations before the move and all the things I have to do now that I'm living in Canada are quite overwhelming and tiring. And it is the second time I'm recording this voiceover. The first time it was good, it was all edited in the video, and then I deleted it. So let's talk about the video again now. The first spread I'm doing is about the 3 mangas I read at the end of February. They are the volumes 16 to 18 of the manga Arte. Arte is set in Renaissance Florence and follows Arte, a painter that wants to gain the same education as male painters would have had at the time. And I had really enjoyed the previous 2 volumes I had read, and I was quite excited when I saw that the library had all 3 of the new ones. But I was so disappointed when I read them. Something I was expecting to happen since the last volume I had read did not. And the romance is not exciting at all. She's basically fallen in love with the first man she's met after she left her house, for no other reason that he's not awful to her. So yeah, that was disappointing, and I was glad I didn't buy them. To decorate this page, I decided to use my usual collage technique with some washi tapes and some music sheets. I also used one of those washi stickers I bought from Journal Say. It's part of a bundle of Impressionist paintings selection, and I just wanted something to be a painting and to be a callback to the theme of the books. I did only half a spread because I didn't really have a lot to say about those volumes, apart from the fact that I was disappointed. The next spread I'm doing is for Mes Bibliothèques, My Libraries, by Varlam Shalamov. It's a short essay he wrote about how he came back to reading and how he found books again after he was sent to the Gulag in Russia. And it must be one of my favorite books ever. I have read and reread it a number of times. And this time around, I wanted to reread it because I was reading another book that's going to be the next spread, and that's set in the same time period, also in the Gulag. But I was slightly disappointed this time. I don't think that reading it while I was reading the other book was a good idea because it suffered from the comparison, and I didn't like the way Shalamov was talking about women. Maybe all the women he met were awful, but when a guy critiques all the women he meets, I'm slightly doubtful and not at all impressed. The first thing I did on this spread was doing a small header for the month of March, and I did a usual collage, and I added a new washi tape I bought at a discount store, and I really like the green tones. They go well with the washi sticker I used on the left, and it also looks like something that William Morris would have done, so I was quite impressed they had something like that at the discount store. I added some book stickers I also had bought at the discount store. I placed a washi tape sticker on the left of the page, slightly on the right page also, so that both pages would look linked. And I also added the green washi tape at the bottom of the page under the quote, and this quote must be one of my favorite quotes ever. It reads: Les livres sont ce que nous avons de meilleur en cette vie, ils sont notre immortalité. Books are what's best in our lives, they are our immortality. Just for this quote, I reread this book quite often. I also added some leaf stickers to the page. I don't know why, I thought that they went well with the theme of the book, and I also added a leaf sticker on the left of the page and on the washi sticker so that both spreads looked linked. And I really like using leaf stickers this way as if they had been swept by wind, because I think it gives interest and movement to a page, and it's quite an easy way to make a normal spread look a bit more elevated. So this is the book I was talking about, Envers et contre tout, meaning against everything, by Eufrosinia Karnovskaya, and I apologize for my Russian accent. This is a memoir that she wrote about her 30 years in the Gulag. It's 600 pages, and there are 300 pages of text and 300 pages of illustration. She wasn't a classically trained artist, so some of her illustrations look a bit naive, but I love her landscapes. The skies and the mountains are just gorgeous, and the other illustrations depicting the horrors of the Gulag are so striking, and I just can remember them now. I wanted to use some of her illustrations on my spreads, and even if I like her skies, I fussy cut around the mountains outlines because I think that it makes the illustration look a bit more, they integrate better with the page this way, because sometimes I think that like just square pictures look a bit severe on a page. I also use some washi tape, and I had a matte washi tape with Russia on it, so I thought this was perfect to add to the page. It had taken me quite a while to read this book. I had bought it like 3 or 4 years ago. I wasn't going to be able to bring it with me to Canada. You've seen how big it is. So this was the perfect opportunity to finally read it, and I had been intimidated by it because it's so big, but once I got into it, I finished it in 2 days. It was so fascinating. So it's weird to say about a memoir that talks about such horrible things that it was great and I was fascinated, but it was such a powerful read, and if you can read French and read this translation, I would recommend it. And if this has been translated in any of the languages you speak, I would really highly recommend it. There is a website, a Russian website, where you can read the whole of her memoirs. It's been scanned. But even if you can't read Russian, you have all of her illustrations that you can see, and I will link it in the description. This is the first time I was doing such a big title, and I wanted to stamp it. I'm quite disappointed by the result because the ink behaved weirdly on the page. There was quite a lot of bleeding on either side of the page. What I don't like with stamps is that it's hard to get them perfectly aligned, even when you use a clear acrylic block. I think I should have put the title slightly higher so I would have had more space to write my review, but I solved that in the next spread. All in all, I'm quite happy about the result of this spread. I like the little collage I did with the cover on the left, and that I added the author's picture. After that, I did 2 other spreads that I didn't show in the video, but I wanted to show you making the 3rd spread about this series called Le Pacte des Marchambres, the Marchambres Pact by Pierre Bottero, because I solved my stamp problem. As you can see, firstly I stamped on some brown paper so that there would be no bleeding on either side of the spreads. And I just used a thin paper bag because I have other brown papers, but they're a bit more thick and I don't like that my journal is getting too big. So I stamped on the brown paper, and I decided to make sure I had enough space on the brown paper for all the letters. But I did not properly take into account the width of the letters, so I did not have enough space on the brown paper to stamp the complete title, so I had to add a bit of brown paper to the right, and I don't really like the result. However, I like the way I stamped the title. So how I did it was to use a smaller stamping block on which I would have more grip, and I stamped letter by letter. I also drew some lines to make sure I was doing it properly aligned, and it takes a bit more time than stamping several letters at a time, but I much prefer how better aligned it is. At the end of the video, I'll do a wrap up and I will talk in a bit more details about how I did those 3 spreads. The next spread I did was also done off camera, and it was a spread about the first 2 volumes of the series A comme association, A like association, and it's written by a tandem of authors, Eric Lhomme and Pierre Bottero. I had reread all of Pierre Bottero's series and I still wanted to read him, so I decided to continue with that series, even if it's not an absolute favorite of mine. So they started the series writing in tandem. They would each write 1 volume that would be happening at the same time, but from a different point of view with different actions, so that each volume would have a different main character. And because of that, it looked appropriate to do 1 spread for 2 volumes at a time. Because the first cover is blue, I immediately imagined that the title of the series that I would do on the spread would be dark blue, but I didn't have a piece of scrapbook paper that would be the correct tone and that wouldn't be too thick. So you saw me painting a bit of brown paper, and it's a bit of a finicky thing because the paper is quite thin, so you can't put too much pressure on it, otherwise it tears, and you have to wait between layers, otherwise it also tears and it's not opaque enough. But I'm happy with the results, and I really like the little collages I did under the covers. I used different stickers from the discount store, and I also use little cutouts I made from a piece of scrapbook paper. If you've ever bought a pad of scrapbook paper, sometimes you have pages that are not background but are filled with different shapes, different illustrations that you can cut out individually, and I liked the witchy vibes they had, so I added them to my spread, and I decided to write the title in white like I had done for the previous 2 volumes, slightly imitating the font that you have on the cover. But I wasn't too happy about the way I did it here. I didn't like the little bit of scrapbook paper I had glued on the left. I thought it wasn't balanced. And the way I added the titles of the individual volumes in markers on the left and on the right, I didn't like how it looked, and it was fine by all means, but I wasn't a fan of the result, and I decided to just redo it. Because I had glued down the brown paper painted in blue so well, I couldn't just lift it, so I had to paste some new brown paper on top of it, and I loved the result. I also covered the titles of the individual volumes with some brown paper painted blue, and if you've counted how many times I've said brown paper in the video, just tell me in the comments. The next spread I did on Easter Day, and you can see that by my lovely Easter chocolate. I decided to start rereading the series Mercy Thompson by Patricia Briggs, and I'm not sure why I decided to reread it at that point, but it had been on my mind for a few weeks. Maybe because I was rewatching the TV series Grimm, and it's an urban fantasy series as well as Mercy Thompson, so maybe that reminded it to me. I don't know. But in any case, I started rereading the first volume, and spoiler alert, I reread and read the whole series until volume 13. Mercy Thompson is an urban fantasy series. It follows the titled character, who is she's a woman who can change into a coyote, and you follow her adventures mixing with the supernatural world, werewolves, vampires, fays, etc. And I had read the series the first time when it was published in French, and I think I had reread a few volumes in English after that. It's not a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, and it gets even more outrageous as the volume piles on, because it's like when you watch the 27th season of NCIS and the showrunners just add more and more weird things because they need to add new things. I didn't know what to do. It was just nice not to have to decide what to read next, to just have the volumes and to not have to ask questions or really worry about the characters, because you know even if they get their heads chopped off, they're gonna be fine at the end of the volume. The first thing I did on this spread was adding a little header for April, and I added a little moon sticker to recall the theme of the page, but not in blue, to have a little bit of contrast. I did my trick with the brown paper painted blue for the title, and I lettered the title trying to imitate the font you have on the covers, and I'm quite proud of the results because I famously do not know how to letter, so this was a nice result, and I will talk to you more about this spread at the end of the video. And we've come to the last spreads I will do on camera. They're for the volume 12 and 13 of the Mercy Thompson series. And this was the first spread I filmed after arriving in Canada. I apologize in advance if you see the camera moving a bit, because I hadn't realized when I filmed that the tripod I used to film my videos, to film the top-down videos, attached slightly differently to this table than it did to my desk in France, and that makes it a bit unstable. I'm not sure how I'm going to solve it because it's a furnished apartment and I'm not going to change the kitchen table I'm crafting on, so I hope it's not too inconvenient in the video. Anyway, it was nice to go back to crafting after all the travel and all the worry of the move, and I decided to use a bit of book pages I had found in this old Western novel, simply because it had wolves in the title and I thought it was too cute to pass on. For the title, I did a little collage with some brown paper and some book pages. I also added my favorite washi tape and paper tape with the grid washi tape and the one that looks like it's fountain pen scribbling. And I decided to hand letter the title imitating the font of the book covers. And it's not perfect by any means, but I think it's fine. I also added a bit of a cutout of a wolf illustration I found on the internet. This was the first time this month I printed illustrations out of the internet to add to my book pages, because I wasn't going to buy specific sticker sets for my pages, so I looked up on Pinterest and on Google to see what I could find. I'm glad I did, because I think it adds a nice effect to the pages, and I hadn't printed illustration to beautify my pages since high school, so that was a nice experience. And I'm glad I did this little collage with the wolves at the bottom of the page. I decided to do 3 books on this spread because the way I read the series was like reading 1 volume a day almost. And when I traveled to Canada, it took 2 days from France to British Columbia. So one day I read 2 volumes in a day. So it was hard to differentiate between 2 volumes at that point, and because it was volume 11, 12 and 13, the things that annoyed me had been the same since the beginning of the series, and I had talked about them in details in other spreads. However, one of the things I wanted to discuss on this spread was the fact that Mercy Thompson has Native American heritage, and it's a really weird thing in the series because we learn she has Native American heritage, her dad was First Nation, but we learn nothing about that part of her heritage apart from the fact she can change into a coyote. We learn nothing about it except in the 4th volume we learn her dad was Blackfeet. Okay, that's it. First mention of any tribe. And in the 6th volume, which I call the Native American volume, we finally learn a bit more about her Native American heritage and we meet Native American people. And it's funny because every single person they meet in that volume is First Nation. They have never met any First Nation people before that, but now suddenly everyone is First Nation. The plot revolves around First Nation mythology. It's well done. You see that Patricia Briggs does research as she does with werewolf and vampires and fays, so she can do it. But she waits for the 6th volume to explore a big part of her main character heritage, and she doesn't do it after the 6th volume. Mercy never meets any more First Nation people after that, except for one person that sometimes comes. I don't understand why you would have a First Nation main character if you don't intend to explore it a bit more. It's such a lip service to her heritage, And on each and every cover of Mercy Thompson, she has those dangly feather earrings, which is clearly a signifier of her Native Americanness, but it's not explored in the volume, so it's not well done at all. And she has another series, Patricia Briggs, set in the same universe with some characters that know each other. And another of her main characters is also Native American. And this time she talks a bit more about the heritage, but if you continue using Native American characters, why don't you have in her acknowledgements? She thanks all the people that have helped her in her research. She explained that she's talked about mechanics with people from the police force, but she never has a Native American consultant. So I don't understand how that works. It's so badly done. Okay, rant over. What I'm doing now is updating my annex. So I first updated my page where I put a cover on all the books I review in the journal. And then I'm updating what I call my books on shelves spread. This is quite a common spread you have in reading journals. You draw a bookshelf and then you draw a shape for each book you've read. What's usually done is drawing book shapes in advance and like with a reading objective, like drawing 50 book shapes and filling them in as you read them. But I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to have empty book shapes or not have enough book shapes. So what I do is that I draw them regularly as I read volumes. I'm going to do a little wrap up of the video and show you the spreads I haven't showed you before. We started with the single page spread on Arte, then we had Mes Bibliothèques, My Libraries by Varlam Shalamov. I still like this spread quite a lot with the mountains and the little quote here. So this is the first spread I didn't really show you. This was for the first volume of Elana by Pierre Bottero. I used stickers that I found at a discount store and I wasn't sure I would be liking them because there is some glitter on it, but I think it's subtle enough that it doesn't really make things weird. And I would have used more stickers if I had had more, but I needed them for the next spreads. I really like the movement they give to the page, and this little collage here is very nice. For the second volume of Elana, L'Envol, I added a page from the graphic novel that's adapted from the series because I really liked the colors and how it went with the page. I didn't have enough leaves left for the page, so I added more like, how is it called, chestnuts and mushrooms. You've seen how I did this one, and I wasn't sure I would like this little pumpkin here, but I think it adds a nice change of color in the page with this grey. This one I talked a bit about, but I didn't show you in details. I added these little gem stickers because the main character of this volume uses quite a lot of gems and minerals to make his spells. I added a few more here and some tarot cards that I've talked about in this volume. These little cutouts from the scrapbooking paper work quite well on the page. The only thing I don't like with this spread is the titles of the individual volumes. I think it looks quite childish, and maybe I should just cover them the way I did on this spread here, but I'm not sure yet. This one I showed you too, and I really like it. I didn't do this on purpose at first, having the brown paper peek through when I ripped it, but I think it's really nice. It adds a nice contrast. I used it too for the quote here, and all in all, it might be one of my favorite spreads I did. This one I'm really proud of too, because I worked on lettering the title, and even if it's a bit wonky at the end, I like how handmade it looks, and I really like that I added this little illustration, and I will have in the description the artist that made the illustrations I used. I didn't show you this spread at all. It's for the second volume of the Mercy Thompson series, Bloodbound. And because the cover is red, I wanted to try to do a red spread, which I hadn't done before. I also hand-lettered the title in red. I added these are not stickers, they're rub-on stickers. And I had bought them last year at the Dollar Tree. And I found that the colors, the grey and the reds, went very well with what I had done. I also added this illustration that I cut in half and this little wolf one because the colors went really well with the cover. You have the red here, the brown that goes here, and the grey that goes here. And for me, it symbolized the werewolf pack that you have in the volumes. And it was a really cute way to symbolize it. This is a spread for the fourth volume of Mercy Thompson. I didn't do the third volume because I didn't want to. And I wanted to try something different with this spread. I added a quote in the middle, and the quote says, "I have a degree in history, which is one of the reasons I'm an auto mechanic." And because I had the auto mechanic theme starting here, I used this sticker here because she drives a car that's similar. And I printed some gears and some tools from Canva, and I used them as stickers, thinking that it would add a nice different feel to my other spreads. And I quite like how it turned out. The next spread is for volume 5 and 6 that I did in one page. I decided to hand letter the two titles in a different font, and it's not as neat as I would usually do it, but I really like how it turned out. I wanted to use more brown paper and write on it this time because in a lot of reading journal videos I watch, they used brown paper to break up the page this way, but they don't just use it as decoration, they actually write on it, and I was curious to see if I would like this. I'm still a bit hesitant about it because I like the way it looks on camera and in pictures, but in reality I found it distracting to read the sentence that goes from the white page to the brown here, and I'm not sure I like it. I like the way the illustration plays with it. I really like the way the covers integrates with the page here. The next spreads I did were the first reading journal spreads I did when I arrived in Canada, and it's for volume 7 to 10. I didn't do anything much different than for the previous spreads. I used some pages, some brown paper, a little illustration here with a crow and a wolf. You've seen how I made the spread, and the little innovation I did was adding this black label for the number of the volume, and I think that the black picks up nicely with the covers, and I'm glad I used the book pages here. Here it is. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have read any of the books, tell me what you think about that in the comment. And if you think I would like any of the books you are reading right now, don't hesitate to tell me. And I'll see you next time. Bye!